I'm Jason UFC, and today we have a story about UFC fighter Khamzat Chimaev hints at a welterweight return ahead of the UFC 286 pay-per-view, where the welterweight title will be on the line between Kamaru Usman and Leon Edwards. Khamzat Chimaev might not be moving up to 185 pounds after all, and hinted at warning the winner of Leon Edwards versus Kamaru Usman. Edwards and Usman will conclude their trilogy this weekend at UFC 286. Edwards, who earned a come from behind on the scorecards, head kick knockout over Usman last year, 2022, at UFC 278, I believe, in Utah, will defend his undisputed welterweight belt against the man he took it from, Kamaru Usman. The Edwards versus Usman trilogy is one of the most highly anticipated fights in a while. The winner will cement themselves as the UFC welterweight king and one of the top pound for pound fighters in the world. As is the uncertainty of this weekend's fight, so is who will be the next welterweight title challenger. Chimaev, who hasn't fought since a catchweight fight win over Kevin Holland at UFC 279 last year, appeared to be moving up to the middleweight division after a botch weight cut ahead of his last fight versus Nate Diaz at UFC 279, which is where he ended up fighting Holland. But Chimaev might not be closing the door on the welterweight title contention. Khamzat blasts Leon Edwards and Kamaru Usman in a recent Instagram comment on one of the UFC's recent posts, UFC social media recent posts. Khamzat Chimaev appeared to backtrack on his rumored move to the middleweight. It says, "Soon I'll take my belt from these two clowns." Khamzat has teased the middleweight matchups like with the likes of Robert Whitaker. I don't think he said anything about Bo Nickel. Probably Paulo Costa. But let's slow down with the Bo Nickel talk already. I mean, come on. Khamzat last fought at middleweight in the first round knockout in September of 2022 over Marishot. Before his recent weight miss, Khamzat appeared to destined to challenge the welterweight throne after UFC 279 debacle. UFC President Dana White seemed hesitant to give Khamzat another welterweight opportunity. I mean, it was a pay-per-view, right? Main event versus Nate Diaz, and Chimaev came in, I believe, 8 pounds overweight. So, I mean, it's not really an easy get there. Dana White reversed his stance and teased a possible Khamzat Chimaev versus Colby Covington fight, although that matchup hasn't come to fruition and Covington's own return timeline is uncertain. Chimaev could be next. Could be the next welterweight title challenger if the UFC opts to give him another chance, and either Edwards or Usman will be waiting for him with the belt. Oh man, it's interesting. I think this story is from a few days ago because a few things has happened. Now, the first thing I want to mention is I think I saw an interview with Dana White last night, and I think he only got one question about Khamzat Chimaev, even though we're in the welterweight. But I believe in that interview, which I think happened either yesterday or 2 days ago, I think Dana White said that Khamzat Chimaev is going up to middleweight. I don't know if that's true, right? But he did answer. He didn't say like, "Oh yeah, Khamzat is going to get the winner of this fight." He didn't indicate that at all. Dana White didn't indicate that at all. I believe the question was, "Hey, what's up with Chimaev? What's his next fight?" And I think it was basically like a one sentence answer. And Dana White's like, "Khamzat is going to middleweight," and he just moved on. No one pressed him on him or anything like that. But that could just be another kind of more important thing that happened at the UFC 286 was the weigh-ins. And UFC, when they have a main event, when they have I believe it's for the championship. I don't know if it's always for every main event. I believe it's only for the championship, where the UFC will always have like a backup fighter. And with this being in a welterweight division, the backup fighter obviously is basically, I can't, for the most part, basically the number one contender, right? In a sense, I don't think always a number one contender, but basically justified for being a backup fighter. I would say that. So, leading up to this event, UFC sometimes what if they don't, in having a backup fighter, they may also have a backup, the co-main event or another fight on the card in the same division as the main event. So if the welterweights are fighting, you'll put two top guys and two top five guys fighting in, maybe not in the co-main event necessarily, but on the same card. But we didn't have any highly ranked welterweights on this card. So it didn't seem like anyone ever asked who was the backup fighter. I don't know if that's true or the UFC chose not to release it, because when Dana White was asked about the backup fighter, he made it known like, oh yeah, no one really asked, and people were, but the thing is that Colby Covington, of all people, Colby Covington showed up in London and weighed in. I mean, we didn't hear anything on social media. We didn't hear any trolling, which is just shocking, right? So when people saw Colby Covington come in, weigh in as the backup fighter, just in case no one could make, either fighter in the main event couldn't make it. So in many ways, that basically shows that Colby Covington basically is getting the next title fight. He's gonna have the argument of, okay, I showed up for the weigh-ins, right? I'm not gonna just take another fight in a few months. I just had to cut weight for the backup fight for this. So if I show up, I weigh in, I do my job, I may not get this fight this time, but we both made weight on the same night, so let me fight the winner of this fight. And that's what I wouldn't be surprised if that's what happens. Now, if Usman wins, is it going to be Colby Covington? That's going to, I don't know about that one. But, if Edwards wins, I would not be surprised if we see Colby Covington versus Leon Edwards scheduled. We also have Gilbert Burns versus Jorge Masvidal on this card. And the reason why I say that these two aren't necessarily backup fighters, because Jorge Masvidal hasn't won a fight in a very long time. And Gilbert Burns coming off of a nice win, but he's lost, I believe, two of his last four fights for the most part. He lost versus Chimaev last year. A nice win earlier this year over Neil Magny, but I don't think, Gilbert Burns with one win over Neil Magny should be in the title conversation at this moment. Even if he defeats Jorge Masvidal, it's a nice victory, and I think he needs a few more victories before he gets, maybe one or two more victories after, the Masvidal fight. And also, if Masvidal win, even though he has a lot of smoke with Leon Edwards, I personally don't think, the UFC could really justify skipping Shatkov, Rachmanov, skipping Khamzat Chimaev, skipping, Colby Covington to give Jorge Masvidal a fight over Leon Edwards in the welterweight division, right? I just don't, I can't really see them they could do it, right? They could definitely do it. Even Belal Muhammad, who I haven't even mentioned, Belal Muhammad, he's on a huge winning streak. I don't know if it's a 9-fight winning streak, but he's on a huge winning streak. So we have to see what happens with Belal Muhammad. But one thing, listen, I will say this. I know everyone loves the UFC lightweight division, and I think it's just a tiny bit overrated. I'm really liking this UFC welterweight division at this moment. If you just look at the contenders, let's just name just the contenders, not even the champion, right? We have to start with the champion. Leon Edwards, Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Khamzat Chimaev, Shatkov Rachmanov, Belal Muhammad, right? I know there's a few names I'm probably missing, right? I know, I haven't named all of them, but that's just like 5-6 contenders who all could arguably right now at this very moment justifiably have a title fight. So I'm really impressed with this kind of new welterweight division. It's not like the lightweight division, With the lightweight division, I feel like the top 5, they just fight each other and they just want to, one win and they're like, oh, I deserve a title shot. Michael Chandler, he gets one win, I deserve a title shot. Justin Gaethje, he gets one win, I deserve the title. It's just like that's all they talk about. But I feel like this new welterweight division is like there's a lot of hungry contenders. Who would not want to see, Bilal Muhammad versus Shavkat Rakhmonov, or Rakhmonov versus Khamzat Chimaev, right? Or Kobe Covington versus Rakhmonov, right? Or Bilal Muhammad versus Kamal Usman, Bilal Muhammad versus Kobe Covington, Bilal Muhammad versus Khamzat Chimaev. There's a lot of names, right? And that's just off the dome, right? I'm pretty sure there's 3 or 4 more names, in a few weeks that we will be talking about in the welterweight division. But let me know your opinion of this story. Do you think Khamzat Chimaev is returning at the welterweight division? Do you think he's returning in the middleweight division? Do you think he deserves the title shot? Should Kobe Covington get the winner of Usman versus Edwards? Who's going to win between Usman versus Edwards? So many questions. Is it Bilal Muhammad next? What is Shavkat Rakhmonov doing? What is Kobe Covington doing after weighing in on this event? I think that means he's almost guaranteed the next title fight, right? Especially if Edwards wins. But let me know your opinion. There's also Gilbert versus Jorge Masvidal. So many questions. This UFC welterweight division actually does make me happy, and I think it's a little bit underrated, but let me know your opinion of this story. I'm Jason, UFC. Today we have a story about a UFC welterweight, UFC middleweight, UFC fighter. Khamzat Chimaev hints at a possible welterweight return ahead of the UFC 286 pay-per-view featuring the welterweight title fight between the current champion Leon Edwards versus Kamal Usman. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the $1 donation button, and please tune in to the next video on this channel. Thanks a million for watching.